The amazing thing about working on The Division 1 and the live game for The Division 1 was that we have 2 years of learnings of how people enjoy playing the game, what people enjoy the most about it. And we know that Endgame is where the core, the meat of the experience lies. So we went into The Division 2 not with a multiplayer first attitude, because that's a given. We went in with an endgame first. There's so many things that we wanted to explore in The Division 2 in terms of your relationship with the enemy and your relationship with combat. So the first thing I want to speak to is this impression of bullet sponginess. You have a photorealistic, credible world, and yet there are enemies that can take 700 hits to the head. It kind of broke the immersion. For The Division 2, what we wanted to do is to challenge that, is to make the combat much more intuitive.
Getting that topography of kill times, like taking down red bars, super snappy. We're closer to a pure shooter experience.
It feels so much snappier. The enemies go down faster, the time to kill has been cut way down.
All the way up to big hulking, tough targets where we apply this new feature of destructible armor.
If an enemy is armored, you can see that armor and you can see bullets chipping it away.
We've seen in the first game as well that it's very important when you create a party with your friends that you need to have different types of skills. So you have a sniper, you have an assault. So we wanted to push even further all that.
In The Division 2, you're going to be able very, very quickly to group up with people and to find different roles to play. That just gets better when we consider specializations. And specializations are something that we unlock when you reach your level cap, that start off with a signature weapon.
Signature weapons, it's an expression of power.
It's a third category of weapon that sits on top of your skills. If I had to pick a favorite myself for the 3 signature weapons we're showing at E3, which is the crossbow platform, the heavy 50 cal sniper rifle, and the grenade launcher, I would have to go for a grenade launcher. The Division 2 is very much an experience where the more you play, the more there is to do, in a way. So when you get to Endgame, the world is at its most alive. The challenges that you can take on are the biggest ones, if you choose to.
Raids for us is the ultimate challenge. We want you to be able to play with your friends and create synergies.
Of course, we're going to make sure that there are moments you'll never forget, unique to the raids. I think in terms of spectacle, we built so much more spectacle into fights in general, in the game as a whole. And you'll see when you play the game, just triggering a weak point with one of your skills, exploding into another one, triggering that, and creating this chain reactions is incredibly satisfying.
We started thinking, okay, it's 7 months later. It's 7 months after the events of The Division 1. It's not winter anymore. Society is starting to rebuild.
The thing that's exciting about DC is that it's the center of American democracy. It's the center of power and of government, basically everything that the Division is supposed to be supporting, but all of that's sort of been swept away by this crisis.
If you want to make money, you're going to go to New York. If you want to have power, you're going to go to DC. It's a very iconic city. There are plenty of landmarks.
If New York was really 2 different sort of biomes, commercial and residential, Washington, D.C. is 6 or 7 of those, including, for the first time in a Division game, a nature biome.
This time around you've got these lush open parks which are now overgrown. We're also seeing kind of this flooding zone that's come into the post-pandemic areas and really changing DC in a unique way.
The original idea for the character in Division 2 is that you're a new sheriff in town, that you're arriving in a situation that you aren't familiar with.
Having somebody come into Washington, D.C. and be stripped of his weapons, to have the bare minimum for survival, and yet every step of the way gaining more equipment, more skills, more armor, more gear.
The gear game and the progression of the gear in the game is of course really at the heart of the progression experience. So it's not just about the gear growing in power, it's also about enabling new ways to play and how it synergizes with the different parts of the rest of your kit.
Now, in terms of how your character looks, one of the things that was important for me was to see the evolution between a level 1 character and a level 30 character. Again, something we didn't particularly do well in the Division 1.
One thing that was key for us was to really work on making sure that every character looked unique. So in the Division 2 we have exotic sets of gear that goes together in one design. So if you collect all the different pieces, you will get a certain look, and those looks will be very different from the gear that you receive from normal leveling.
The Dark Zone is iconic for the Division. And of course we're going to bring it back. And we're going to bring it back with 2 years of experimentations on the Division 1. One of the things that we realized on the Division 1 is that we were incredibly proud of Underground, we were incredibly proud of Last Stand and Survival, but they were behind a paywall and they kind of split the community. So taking that lesson on board, what we want to do for the Division 2 is to supply all of that content for free.
Look out!
So what we're planning is 3 different content drops every 3 months, new modes, new story missions, and new areas to explore. The Division 2 will be available in March 2019.